This is the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, that was 11 years ago today, and a pretty stark reminder, have you forgotten? You know, my daughter, just a couple of weeks ago, she just turned 11. She was born a couple of weeks just before 9/11. And so the other night I was asking her about it. Now, it's not something that you want your kids to know everything about. She knew some things, but not as much as I thought. And so we went over it and explained it to her, and it's probably one of the most incredible pictures I saw today. This cute little girl, about the same age as my daughter, in the paper. Her dad was a firefighter, died on 9/11. And, you know, she'd never met her dad because she was born after 9/11. Her mom was pregnant at the time. And it is a stark, somber reminder of what it is that we are dealing with. And as the years go by, you have to ask yourself the question, have we forgotten? Now we're dealing with, you know, a situation that is unfolding. We got a president that's missing half his intelligence briefings. We got a report that Jerusalem is now within new Iranian missile range. The Iranians vowing to wipe Israel off the map. The Muslim Brotherhood is in charge of Egypt. Now you've got Islamic extremists now taking over the entire Middle East with one goal to wipe Israel off the planet. And beyond Israel, this radical Islamic caliphate. Anyway, Zuhdi Jasser is back with us, author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam. And also back with us is Pam Geller. And she has her new book, Stop the Islamization of America, A Practical Guide to the Resistance. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
You know, we go back 11 years. I mean, I can't even believe it's 11 years. We started the syndication of this program the day before. And this was the news the very next day. We couldn't even get into the city to broadcast. We ended up broadcasting from WLIR in Long Island. But, you know, I'm afraid that as time goes on and people just talking about a peace dividend again and cuts and, you know, Jerusalem is taken out of the DNC platform and at a time when Israel needs more moral support than ever before, Pam, I'm worried we have forgotten in some ways.
Not only have we forgotten, but the war in the information battle space is waging, and we are disarmed. We look at Afghanistan. We have no plan for victory, no definition of what victory would look like. We have no clear purpose. They've targeted General Martin Dempsey's plane at Bagram Air Base. We've seen repeated, attacks by Afghan soldiers that we are training. According to Biden, you know, Joe Biden said they weren't the enemy. So what are we doing in Afghanistan? The green on blue attacks are staggering, considering there were none under President Bush, none. And that's because, as you know, Osama bin Laden said, the world loves a strong horse. We are clearly not a strong horse. And when Obama said that he was going to radically transform this country, I had no idea that he would also radically transform the entire world.
You know, I'm a little surprised that this has become such a big election issue in this sense. I mean, you know, we just heard the president in that song say that we got bin Laden, which is great. And he's out there spiking the football. And he said at the time, well, we can't show pictures of bin Laden's dead body because that would inflame tensions in the Muslim world. And he said that on numerous other occasions. He's called enhanced interrogations torture. I applaud him for doing the right thing. But if he had his way, we wouldn't have had rendition. We wouldn't have had EIT, enhanced interrogation. He would have closed Gitmo. And the very things that led to bin Laden, we've pretty much stopped doing.
And we've announced that Mullah Omar can run for president in Afghanistan. It's worse than a Saturday night skit. It's very scary stuff. And you could say, if at first, that he was naive. I don't see that. I see he sides with evil every time. He has abandoned our allies in the Middle East. He has abandoned our allies in Eastern Europe. This is a consistent anti-freedom, pro-jihadist.
Well, I mean, he did make the call to get bin Laden, but again, the very intelligence gathering methods. We had Jose Rodriguez on the program last night on Hannity. And he was there. He witnessed the enhanced interrogation techniques against, you know, people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the other two times they were used. He witnessed it. He knows that we got the intelligence. Without those enhanced interrogations, which Obama calls torture, Mr. Jasser, I mean, he's saying no bin Laden. Wouldn't have happened.
Well, because, you know, Sean, the issue is that we've truly had no vision. There's been no policy. Nobody knows what the Obama doctrine is. And as a former naval officer, I look at our sons and daughters putting their lives on the line and getting less and less resources. And as we were just discussing in Afghanistan, I mean, every military person I've talked to knows there's no military solution. And yet, not only are we using a whack-a-mole program for counterterrorism, we've had no counter-ideology. And unfortunately, without any leadership in Washington that can identify the enemy as being a theopolitical ideology that is Islamism or political Islam that's rising, as you said, in Egypt, Afghanistan, Iraq we've lost, Iran is spreading, Syria we've avoided, and is becoming a proxy war for the Iranians. Until we have both a military and an ideological strategy, the people on the ground, the reformers like our organization, the American Islamic Forum, the coalitions we're trying to form are just floundering on our own because our country does not have the vision like Eisenhower and others had when we finally started to say that we have to fight the Soviets by defeating communism, and we finally did 30, 40 years later because we had an ideological focus on countering socialism and communism. And we don't have that same focus today, 11 years after 9/11, where we have clarity on the ideology we're fighting and who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
You see, I think the country, rightly so, is war-weary. I mean, there's only so much we can ask of these brave men and women in the military. I mean, they have gone way above and beyond anything that we could even ask them to do in the future. I mean, I think we need to rebuild our military, but they're talking about, quote, peace dividends, gutting the military. Here's my problem. And for those that think, oh, this is a wild Hannity prediction, remember, everybody else pretty much in the media was wrong about what happened with the Arab Spring. And from the earliest days, I said, watch out, the Muslim Brotherhood, a known terrorist group, would be in charge. And the first thing they did was declare that Israel is their number one enemy when, in fact, they did get in charge. Next thing, they tried to cut off energy to Israel. And they are now meeting with the Iranians, which is a great danger. I say, Pam, we are living through right now, this is a historical moment, the rise of radical Islamists.
Absolutely. And what the media, Sean, it misinforms the people. Understand that Obama invited the Muslim Brotherhood to his speech in Cairo at Al-Azhar University, and Al-Azhar, which he called the Supreme Center of Islamic Learning, which has issued fatwas against apostates, that's Muslims that leave Islam, that has just recently called for the death of the Jews. He invited the Muslim Brotherhood to his speech. They were banned at the time. And the reason why I bring this up is that was in June of 2009. The rise of the Muslim Brotherhood was made possible by Obama's foreign policy. This is something that is not being connected in...
Well, the president said this was democracy, and all these reporters, as they were, some of them getting beaten in Tahrir Square, and look at the horror that Lara Logan went through there, raped and beaten to within an inch of her life. I mean, they're all telling us democracy, democracy, democracy. And I said, this is not democracy. This is the rise of the radical Islamists. And now we see that they have decided to align themselves with Iran. And even in recent weeks, they have predicted, the supreme leader and Adolf Jr., Ahmadinejad, have predicted and have stated that they're going to wipe Israel off the map. And this was all ignored. All the pundits, all the critics in the White House with all their intelligence couldn't figure out what was so obvious to a few of us.
And worse, Sean, I don't know if you heard Bibi Netanyahu today, but I will tell you that to watch that man speak today, there was a desperate, really troubling inflection in his voice when he said those who refuse to put red lines before Iran don't have a moral right to place a red light before Israel. I mean, this is a tiny nation, 9 miles at its wide, surrounded by ginormous, hostile Muslim countries. And the idea that the State Department and his press secretary would come out and say, we have more time. Like Netanyahu said, time for what? Until
Listen,
what
this isn't a question of when. I mean, this isn't a question of if. It's a matter of when. Yeah. Israel will, for their own national security interest, they're going to strike Iran. It is going to, I predict it'll happen before the end of the year.
I hope so. I think it's horrible how the world, who denigrates and condemns mercilessly the tiny Jewish state, expects the tiny Jewish state to take on this huge burden, and it's a world problem. Because if people think, Israel, that is such a problem over there. If Israel wasn't there, you have no idea the amount of jihad that she absorbs. I mean, it would be an avalanche across Europe. And you see what's happening in Europe now. You see the trouble that Europe is in right now. Here we have today 11 years after 9/11, and Channel 4 in Britain cancels a documentary on Islam because of the threats to the newscaster.
All right, Mr. Jasser, we're going to give you the last word.
And I'll tell you, Sean, I mean, this truly is a post-American presidency. You've got Iran basically knowing that we're not going to do anything because they see in Syria we have not backed anybody or helped any of the freedom movers there and have been so silent. They're basically destroying that country, and now it's becoming more and more radicalized as a place for al-Qaeda. We need clarity like President Reagan had, calling the Soviets an evil empire. We need to call
we
evil
can't
where
do
it
that.
is
We'll
and
be
move forward
inflaming
and help those on
tensions.
the ground.
Well, but wait a minute. That'll inflame the passions of those that already hate us and want us dead.
Well, our departure from them completely would allow the strong horse, the fascists, whether they're theocrats or secular fascists, they would end up winning. And the green revolutions that we abandoned in 2009, there are so many Muslims that need support from the ground, not the Islamists. The Islamists are the thugs. They will win without America that has always had a long vision for freedom to at least start to help the infrastructure that is a long vision over 5, 10, 15 years rather than let these strong horses win all the time.
All right, guys, thank you both for being on the program. We appreciate it.